So recently, after I finally figured out how to mod my Xbox 360, I started downloading and playing games that I never used to have the opportunity of playing, and some of those games were WWE 13 and UFC Undisputed 3, which were both made by THQ. And playing both those games gave me a sort of realization that I don't think there's ever been any other studio out there that really knows how to make a good combat sport game the way THQ used to make. So please join me as I take a look back at one of the best studios at their peak to make combat sports games, and just look back at what made them so special and so good to play. So if you are new here, welcome to the channel, and if you're not, welcome back. And if you do enjoy the video, be sure to like and subscribe to be able to see more like this, and thank you for watching and tuning in. So I came to this revelation while I was getting my ass beat in UFC Undisputed 3. I'm talking about these guys putting hands and feet on me and barely surviving, but still having fun in the game, not getting frustrated as much as other games, but making me just accepting that I have to get better at the game. For the longest time that I've been alive, and even before I was alive, and when THQ was still around, it seems like they used to be the ones making all the WWE games. Like if you want a combat sport or pro wrestling game, you go to THQ because none else would make something so good and in such a short amount of time that would be received so well.
Nice.
So first thing I want to talk about is the different mechanics of these games, which I think is what made them so fun, and then everything else around the games just added to the enjoyability of them, like the presentation and feel and such. Let me start by talking about WWE 13 first, cause it's one of my favorite games ever. I remember when I was younger on my PS2, when I used to buy games, there was this guy who sold them to me, and I don't know how, but I thought I had found WWE 13 for PS2, but it was just the cover of the disc, and when I popped it in, it played the trailer for WWE 13, and then after it was like SVR or SVR 6 or something. Then I also had a disc, I thought that was SVR 2013, which was really well made and a good design, but it was actually just like SVR 10 for PS2, but it was modded and still fun. And I didn't know any better. I was still young and I didn't really know that THQ had stopped making games for the PS2. And yeah, anyway, that's when I really started kind of wanting to play WWE 13, cause seeing from the trailers and always like seeing that when I boot up SVR 06 just really made me want to play it even more. So it was all about, cause I thought I was getting one game but it was something else. Either way, I enjoyed it, and still then SVR 06 was made by THQ and it was still a good game, so it was kind of a win-win for me anyway. But anyways though, when I did get the game, it was addicting as hell and it just felt really good to play, especially when I slow the match pace down and play like an actual pro wrestler. It's exciting and really fun. I haven't even played Attitude Era mode yet because I wanted to make a gameplay video for it, but I already know it's gonna be very fun. And okay, let me get to my points finally. So this was the year that THQ introduced Predator Technology 2 or 2.2, which is an upgrade of the original one they used for WWE 12. Only this time it was better, more physics based, better animations, and reversals windows, which just made it easier for someone to put on a burn banner of a match. It felt like the match and gameplay could just flow more seamlessly and have the mix of being at an arcade pace while still having simulation style aspects to balance everything out and be fun. It was a prioritization for the dev team to focus on refining the animation system from WWE 12 to 13 to make it feel better to play with slight homing and better targeting for more action for us, and also including better collision context to keep the sort of believability alive for the players, so that it doesn't seem like it's WWE All-Stars or something like that. Has to be like that sort of CMK style pro wrestling game that can still just deliver on all the high-flying crazy aspects of pro wrestling and also have that simulation style pace if you want it also. And then there's UFC Undisputed 3, where they rework the striking, clinching and submissions into more layered and in-depth systems. It felt like a vastly improved game from Undisputed 2011. It felt more fluid and more precise, while also being a bit fast depending on if you put simulation settings on or not. No matter what though, each phase of fight has its own controls, inputs, counters, and risk and reward trade-offs for you. It felt like it was an actual MMA fighting, biding your time, seeing the risks in each punch, kick, or takedown attempt you want to try. You have to pace yourself and learn your opponents and go from there. Keep a safe distance, test out what works, what doesn't, how your opponent is countering your strikes, if they're going for takedowns, how to counter that, and just actually play like an MMA fighter. Cause let me say this confidently, the ratings don't tell the full story, and I truly enjoy that in this game because it adds to the unpredictability of what can happen in a real fight in the game. So those decisions made turned both these games into systems that reward precise inputs and patient gameplay while also adapting to the physical context of each fighter or wrestler, just weaving together greatly to make it feel so much better to play. The THQ's combat sport titles gave us players distinct systems to master in order to get good at the game. Easy to learn but hard to master. We had footwork, distance management, head movement, blocking, timing and leveraging in the clinch, and takedowns and defense too. These things require the players to be able to make reads and advanced timing in order to not get knocked out. It was way more skill based than how it is now, where you can just get lucky or pick the best fighter and dominate. Undisputed 3 wasn't reliant heavily on character predetermined movesets apart from some signature strikes and throws and such. It more depends on how the player utilizes every tool they have to get an advantage and dominate the fight, with a submission main game, distinct ground position rules, and even separate mechanics for pride rule sets, which had soccer kicks, stomps, rings, and cage differences that really made it special. And that sort of gap just creates a learning curve, so you actually have to learn how to play the game, be good with whichever fighter you wanna use, and that creates a skill gap, which I think is a good thing, because the only way you can get better is by practicing and giving actual time to learning how to not get knocked out. You get actual real-time feedback and learn from your mistakes, no matter how frustrating it can be, in order to improve your timing, striking, takedowns, and everything. Even in WWE 13, you have to get better at timing reversals, grapples, and strikes to make sure you do damage while also putting on a show. The systems for these games were deep but still readable enough for someone to enjoy. So every time I lose in one of these games, all I can think of to myself is I got outplayed. I made dumb mistakes and I know what not to do in order to win and get better next time. Another thing that THQ really got right with these games was the presentation, making them feel like way bigger and more grand than they were. Events feeling like actual events and important like main events, whether it's for a title or not, will feel different from a co-main event, and even that co-main event feels different from the main card and undercard. THQ really knew how to engineer presentation systems that sold the illusion of a real UFC fight or WWE broadcast. Although with WWE 13, I'd say it was a bit underwhelming from previous years, still good, but I just remember I think SmackDown vs Raw 08 in season mode, 24/7 mode, whatever, the presentation that was really high level, and that's one of the few things I actually liked from that game. And especially at the end of like a show with my wrestler or a storyline in the ring, then a freeze frame and the trademark and copyright stuff showing up in the bottom left corner. It really sold it for me and made it just feel that much more immersive. But still, WWE 13 came out shipped with great crowd reaction systems, live event audio capture, and all these camera angles to try and mimic the stuff we were watching on TV. And it was great still and very pleasing to my eyes and senses. And it's interesting because combat sports are like half spectacle then half skill and trying to kill each other in the ring, with sound, the commentators' reactions, and insights and audience.
Grab his dick and twist!
It's supposed to all come together and flow in this big nice way to just make it feel more entertaining for people watching. Cause just imagine watching a fight with no insight, no commentators, no crowd noise, no nothing. It's just people fighting, you just hear them grunting, meat on meat. Face to face. It would just be boring even though they're still fighting, trying to kill each other. It wouldn't be as entertaining and as much of a spectacle as it is now. And don't think that Undisputed 3 lacked either, because Undisputed 3 had the signature walkouts of fighters, the music, the fighting stances, taunts, and all that. And they integrated their presentation skills also towards gameplay to sell big hits, takedowns, getting rocked, and knocked down. Even simple punches felt like they had all the weight and proper reaction, even audible feedback whenever something landed, just making you feel the toughness of a fighter in the game. And back to the audible feedback, punches sounded meaty and heavy, kicks were worse, and slams sounded like they took your soul out. It was just perfect. It just felt very heavy and like impactful. And something else I really enjoyed about THQ games was just how much they experimented with different moves in each game they made, with rule sets, match stipulations, and just just different and new things to spice up the games. No game was ever just a copy-paste base game experience with updated rosters, arenas, and maybe improved graphics. WWE 13 had this in Attitude Era mode, which saw us go back in time and play through all the important or most memorable moments during the Attitude Era, and that made it, for most people, the peak of pro wrestling, with WWE and WCW dueling over the Monday Night ratings and the arrival and popularity and hype that SmackDown brought when it was introduced. We got to play in historical, controversial matches and recreate the crazy moments from those times with accurate movesets and objectives and just revel in the time. And with Undisputed 3, we also had this in UFC 5 modes, where we could also play classic and amazing UFC matches that happened in real life in the game, and even unlock movies to watch about fights and the stories behind them. On top of that, we also had Pride mode and rule sets, which really just made it feel like an actual, complete and respectful representation of the two biggest MMA entertainment companies at one point. So just for Pride mode alone, that already puts the theme for me bounds and leaps above any other UFC or MMA games. And these game modes also weren't just there for show, they actually had an impact on gameplay. Well, in the game mode, like with Pride, obviously the rule changes and such, and the ring, which made it so that your inputs have different outcomes depending on the context of the fight and place in the ring. Like, you could actually stomp someone out and hit them with a brain killing, CTE inducing soccer kick while they're on the floor begging for their life. And with WWE 13, the arena changes depending on the area of Attitude mode, allows you to perform more environmental and unique moves and other interactable things like with weapons, tables, ladders, and such. And these risks and ambitions that THQ had and took really required a lot more quality assurance from the main game and gameplay around the modes, and a lot of design refining to make it feel nice to experience and not just make it feel like an empty game. But in that, they created varied and amazing different modes for players to enjoy, so you can never really get bored with the game, while it also not feeling too pushy to do something you don't want to do. It prevented repetition and gave the games this standard quality that hasn't been topped years. I mean, when I'm playing the latest WWE 2K, it doesn't really have that sort of same uniqueness, though there's even showcase mode. It just feels dull and boring now, and I don't know why. I can't really put my finger on why, but it just doesn't feel the same as Attitude Era mode or like it was before. But unfortunately, as with all things, everything must come to an end. These were the last and dying years of THQ making games and being alive. The fall of THQ from 2012 to 2013 created a vacuum that was a bit hard to fill and hard for players to adapt to and accept the new games, like me, with WWE games now being exclusively made by 2K and UFC games being made by EA. And you know, with a studio like THQ, which had so much experience and had been around for so long, just gathering knowledge of the sports, constantly tweaking their engines, trying to find out what would work best for these games, all the animations they had made over the years, and the combat systems they made and refined for the game. It was just hard seeing anyone other than them making a UFC or WWE game, and it especially hard more because they never got the chance to try their hand at making a game for the PS4 or next gen. And all those systems and tweaks didn't really transfer nicely to the studios now making the games. I mean, with WWE 2K15, it wasn't that well received and it was glitchy as hell. And UFC was okay and fun, but still not there yet, not to the height of Undisputed 3. I mean, they did poach some stuff from THQ, but it was too splintered and disjointed for anything cohesive to happen. And so, just like that, it was all over and everyone had to rebuild the scraps they had, but it resulted in less engineered, high-scale combat sports games, mainly for UFC, and titles more prioritized for monetization and lower development risk and creativity. The bar that THQ set for these types of games was insanely high. Some games have come close, but there's no reaching it. It was untouchable, but it's still just, you know, out of reach. They can't get back there anymore, and that's why I think that THQ was truly the GOAT studio in creating combat sports games. So thank you all for watching the video till the end. I don't know if anyone reaches this far, but thank you. If you did enjoy the video, however, and want to see more videos like this and support me, be sure to subscribe so that you're first on new videos, and like this video so that I can keep making more and just know you guys enjoy them. So thank you all very much.